Today we're going to be making some aluminum foil art. What I love so much about aluminum foil art is that it's using materials that you probably have in your kitchen and materials that you can find outside. So we're going to combine taking a nature walk and assembling a really cool masterpiece using imprints from leaves that show up on aluminum foil. We're going to be adding some color with markers and overall just creating a really fun and cool and shiny masterpiece. Can't wait to make with you. So the first thing we're going to do is collect our nature materials. Today I went on a walk with my dogs in my backyard and I just collected some leaves that I thought were really interesting. I'm looking at the petals and the veins behind them. I also really like the stem just because of the line that we're going to be able to get with the aluminum foil. So keep in mind to collect things that you're interested in. So now that I have all my materials together, I have my markers, my tape, glue stick, the pieces that I collected on my nature walk, really interesting and fun shapes and lines and textures. I also have a pretty big piece of aluminum foil just to make sure it's bigger than my cardboard surface, and then a piece of cardboard which we're going to mount all of our materials on. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a composition. So a composition is when you arrange things together to make them look really nice or sound really nice if you're talking about music. In this case, we're talking about art. So I'm trying to compose or arrange my nature pieces in a way that I think is really interesting. Some of them might need adjustment, so maybe I just want half of this piece. Some I may want more of, so maybe I'll go back to my backyard and try to find more pieces. But for right now, I'm going to try and use what I have. As you can see, I'm making sure that the back side of each petal is facing upward. This is going to really help when we start to make an imprint with the foil. If it's flipped over to the front side, we're still going to see a little bit of an imprint, but not as dramatic as the back of it. Now that I have everything exactly where I want it, I'm going to start to attach the material pieces onto the cardboard. So as you can see, I glued the cardboard and not the leaf. And this is for a really important reason. So the different leaves or petals that you might use definitely have different textures on them. Some of them might be shiny and smooth, but some of them might be fuzzy or have dirt on it or whatever it is, which makes it really difficult to glue onto, and then it just dirties up the glue stick. So to avoid that, we're going to glue onto the cardboard itself. I'm kind of gauging how much glue I'm going to need and what space. If you don't get it in the right spot completely, that's okay, because we're not really going to see this part after the piece is finished. So now I'm going to take my time and I'm going to make sure everything's where I want it to be and attached enough so it doesn't move around when we place the aluminum foil on. You want to be careful with this part. Not so much that your pieces don't move around a ton, but just that everything's exactly where you want it to be, because once we put the aluminum foil on, it's going to be a little bit challenging to move things around again. As I'm wrapping up, gluing my material pieces down, I'm going to take one last look at my composition, my arrangement. Maybe I want to add something else. I really like collage, which is what we're making. Collage is an arrangement of things, shapes, colors, lines, textures, and things that we find. I really love collage because I get to experiment with things that I can't quite make myself. So I guess I could grow a plant and use it that way, but the actual shape and form, that's all nature's job. So now that I have everything where I want it to be, I'm going to decide whether I want the shiny side of the aluminum foil or the duller side. I think for this big piece I'm going to use a dollar sign just because I want to experiment with how shiny I really need it to be to see the imprint. I'm going to flip it over on its backside and I'm going to fold over the edges. Now this specific piece of cardboard was the exact size I needed for the width of the aluminum foil, so I don't have any extra on the top and the bottom, and that's okay. I just need to make sure that there's enough to wrap around the aluminum foil. So as you can see, I'm testing out which direction I'm going to tape my aluminum foil onto the cardboard. It's better to tape it the opposite way of the lining, just to make sure it's nice and secure. It's going to make it nice and tight, and we want the aluminum foil to be on there pretty tight so that our imprints are a little bit more clear. Again, taking your time with this process is really important. It's not the most fun of the process, but it's definitely going to make a difference if you do it really rushed and really loose, or very smooth and very steady. After I have all of my sides nice and mounted, I'm going to flip it over back to the front side, and I'm ready to start finding my imprints. I'm going to use my hands and my fingers, and I'm going to pretty much rediscover these petals and these leaves. I'm going to find the veins of the leaf, the edges, and I'm going to very smoothly and gently re-find that texture. As you can see, it's starting to come through with a very little pressure, but I am going to apply a little bit more pressure to get those little itty bitty details within the leaves. I tend to push up and left and right and backward. It really depends on the leaf or the petal that's underneath. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more gentle, but sometimes you can really push hard. So for those itty bitty little details, I am pressing a little bit harder. And I'm also using the pointer, the tip of my finger. It's just going to help guide and press down the aluminum foil a little bit more. As you can see around the petals and the leaves, some of the aluminum foil isn't quite flat against the cardboard. Now this is okay. It depends on what you prefer. If you use a smaller piece of cardboard than the width of your aluminum foil, then you can get a really nice and smooth surface. But if your aluminum foil is just the right size as your cardboard, like mine was, it's going to be a little bit looser. Again, that's okay. It's whatever you prefer. As you can see, I'm starting to get the full effect of my composed nature collage. I'm really having fun with this part too because I'm rediscovering the textures or the way that these leaves feel. What's really fun about this process too is I'm getting to feel the smooth and coolness of the aluminum foil, but also the very defined ridges of the leaves and the veins and the petals and the leaves. So I'm pretty happy with the imprint that I have so far. It's a little difficult to see, but as you can see when I shift it in the light, you can really see the definition. So now I'm done with my glue, done with my tape for a little bit. Now I'm gonna start to add some color. Now, mistakes happen, and mistakes are okay, but the most important thing to know is that even if you make a mistake, you want to keep going. So I wanted to use these markers as, color, outline, but they didn't really show up very well on the aluminum foil. They didn't really stay in place. So they did help to further outline my imprint, but they weren't really working as a use of color. So I had to change tactics. I grabbed a permanent marker instead. So I have these really big, fun permanent markers. You can use Sharpies, you can use any kind of permanent marker. You can also use ballpoint pens, which I'll use later. And all I'm doing right now is trying to fill in the negative space. So the negative space is a space around an object. So right now I'm just having fun filling in that negative space. I'm using zigzag lines. I'm not really filling it in solid because I do want some of the aluminum foil to come and shine through as well. What's really nice about this process too is as I'm drawing around the leaves, I get a really nice defined shape that you may not have seen if I didn't add color. Collage can be really fun this way. It's not only about the images or the shapes and colors and lines that you put on your piece, it's also about the fun things that you get to do with it. So these leaves were grown on a tree in my backyard. Kind of just meant, could be used for shade, could be used for just really nice trees in my backyard, but I'm able to reimagine them as an art piece. I think that's what I love so much about collage is you get to change what things are used for and use them in a really unique and creative way. So now I'm going to change colors a little bit just to give myself some variety, and I'm going to change the way that I'm filling in that negative space. So instead of doing the zigzag lines, I'm going to do some swirls and some circles just to add a different kind of line and just to make that negative space a little bit more fun. As you can see, my piece is coming together, filling in that space, and I'm getting really excited about the way it's turning out. Now, another thing to take note of when you're making any kind of art piece is sometimes you just want to let your hands go. Right now, I don't really have a plan on the final design or the final art piece itself. I'm just using the materials I have and having fun with it. Having fun is probably the most important thing about making art, especially when you're making it from home, because you're not doing it for a project, you might not be doing it for anybody else, and you just want to have fun and explore on your own. Right now I changed to a ballpoint pen just to show you how it would turn out. What I like about a ballpoint pen on this process specifically is that it's such a small and thin line where you can add a lot of really delicate detail. You do want to be very careful with the ballpoint pen because it's a little bit sharper than a permanent marker or a Sharpie tip. So as you can see right about now, I just put a hole in my aluminum foil just because I was going a little too fast and not being gentle enough. What's really cool about a ballpoint pen as well, and with the line being so thin, is that you can add other really fun little doodles. Now I'm just filling in some of the petal spaces just to add a little bit more design on the inside. I didn't do that really with the Sharpie because my Sharpie was a little bit bigger and I didn't want to fill up too much space on the inside. I wanted to show off that kind of imprint inside. So again, you can use a lot of different materials, different colors, and just have fun with it. So right now I'm going to tighten the aluminum foil now that I'm done with my drawing on top because everything is where I want it to be. Again, I'm going to make sure that my tape is going the opposite direction than the lining. So it acts as a little tab and I can pull and tighten the aluminum foil. I'm going to flip it over to the other side. I'm going to very gently but a little bit strongly pull the tape like a tab to tighten the aluminum foil on the other side. And I'm going to make sure it's pressed down nice and secure. I'm going to do that on the top, and I'm going to do that on the bottom. And as I go, I'm going to go over my imprints a little bit more just to find those little itty bitty details that I might have missed the first time around. I do recommend using clear tape just because I can overlap it on my art piece and it's see-through, so it's not distracting the eye from seeing the actual piece itself. If you're using a bigger piece of aluminum foil than your cardboard base, you can definitely use a different kind of tape, and you won't be able to see that tape on the front. But just for this one, because I had to overlap the tape on the front, I wanted to use a clear tape. So like I said before, I'm going through again, and I'm going to find all those little veins that I want to make sure are visible. I'm being very careful. I don't want to rip the aluminum foil. These are kind of like my final touches. It is really fun to redefine and to find all those lines and textures in the leaves. And that's probably the most fun part for me. So now I have my final piece and I'm pretty happy. I might want to add more color in, but for right now I'm just gonna put my little signature in the corner there. And I'm gonna say that I'm happy with this for it being an experiment. It's really cool to show it through the light, just because the aluminum foil is so shiny. You can see that really nice texture. If you want to hang it up or display it, I would suggest displaying it near a light or maybe near a window. And there you go. So I'm going to do a really quick and small collage, foil collage for the shiny side of the aluminum foil, just to give you an idea of what it could look like. Again, you can use both sides if you'd like, and you can experiment with both sides too. But if you just want to see my examples and then pick the ones from there, that's okay too. So again, I'm arranging my composition. I'm gonna glue onto the cardboard, and I'm gonna make sure that the back side of those leaves and petals are facing up. So I am using leaves and petals for this foil collage, but you could use anything. You could use anything that's flat and you want to find a texture for. So you could use string or yarn. You could find different kinds of puzzle pieces that you're not using anymore. You want to definitely find objects that are a bit thinner and a little bit more flat. But that does have really fun texture. I think for my next foil collage, I'm going to use some pieces of a puzzle that I found and don't really have a purpose for. I think that could be really cool. So like I said before, I'm going to use the shinier side. I'm going to make sure that the dull side is in contact with the cardboard. And now I'm going to wrap up my aluminum foil around the cardboard. Now I did pick a smaller piece of cardboard, so there's a lot of aluminum foil all the way around, and I can make sure that I make it nice and tight this time, as well as making sure that you can't really see the tape on the front. Right now I'm just making sure that everything's nice and tight, but also really secure, and I'm kind of wrapping this piece of cardboard like a present. I'm making sure I'm using my tape as a tab so I can pull it a little bit tighter. You don't want to pull too tight, you don't want to rip it, but aluminum foil is pretty strong, so you can pull it a good amount. So for the other sides, I'm just going to fold them like I would fold a present. I don't want any extra aluminum foil hanging over the sides because I don't want it to distract from the main piece. This is actually getting me pretty excited for wrapping Christmas presents. I really like wrapping Christmas presents, and maybe I'll use aluminum foil this year. make it really shiny. All right, I'm gonna use my last piece here and I'm gonna flip it over. And again, I'm going to find all of those textures and that definition. For this small collage, I'm not really going to color it. I think I'm just gonna leave it with aluminum foil and let the leaves and the petals kind of speak for themselves, show off for themselves. Now I probably could have gone a little bit tighter with the aluminum foil, but I do like that I have some room to play with as well. So I really hope you liked this video. I hope that you are able to take some inspiration from the things you find in your backyard or the spare things you find around your home and rediscover those textures. Have fun, and I hope I get to see what you make.